You're listening to Podcast PXN, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo. Let's do this. What's up, guys? You're listening to episode 21 of Podcast PXN. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Prindle, aka Dan is DTM on Twitter, and I am joined by the pride of PlayStation, Sean Babiak. Sean, Game of the Decade, Hello Kitty Island Adventure 2. That's what you're going with? Is that a fair assessment?
If people listen to the pre-show, though, you told
that
the same joke.
That was an Easter egg, yeah. So if anyone wants to watch
That's not an Easter egg.
It's an Easter egg, yeah. So anyone watching live
it's a callback.
got that. Yeah, well, it's Easter egg, callback, whatever. Thank you to everyone watching live and participating in the live chat. Just as a reminder, we are live each and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube. All you have to do is search Podcast PXN, and you will find us on there. The show always starts with the PXN news of the week, so let's go ahead and jump right in. The first item we have is IGN, the biggest game reviewer and news outlet for the video game industry and entertainment industry in general, has a brand new scoring system for reviews. So previously, they had a scoring system based on the 100-point scale, so they'd have from 0, essentially, even though I don't know if I've ever seen a 0 to 100.
I think their lowest was like a 1.5 at some point.
Yeah.
I think that's what I remember. Maybe a 2.5.
So, essentially, they're cutting that back to a 20-point scale, or, I'm sorry, 10-point scale. It was a 20-point scale. I don't know why I said 100. They used to have 100.
Technically, if
right?
you think of the decimals as... like if you do the fraction, it would have been a 100-point scale.
Right. You're right. 20-point scale is their new version, right? Or 10-point scale.
It would technically be just a 10-point because they're not even doing 0.5s.
They aren't. Yes. Yep. Okay. So anyway, yeah, that was a great news article, Daniel. You did your research on that one. But anyways, they have a new scoring system where they're basically eliminating all the decimals. So it'll be 0 to 10, very much being 0 is the worst game ever made. I don't know that I've ever seen anything reviewed as a 0. 10 is reviewed as a masterpiece. So 10 is your Last of Us. I don't even know if that got a 10, but yeah, like that kind of experience. I don't know if I agree with this, just because, and we were talking about this before. Essentially, I'm not sure what that face was for, but anyways,
I didn't mean to do a video.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to look up their lowest rated game
ever. Okay. Essentially, their review scale should be based on what the words say, according to IGN themselves. And the problem with that is, for me personally, is there's a lot of gray area between what is something that's masterpiece and amazing. Like, how do you define, if you think of something in your head as being very close to a masterpiece, like something that doesn't quite hit that masterpiece level, but it's not like, I wouldn't say like amazing or whatever. Like, there's a lot of games that I feel like would be right below a masterpiece that I feel like they're kind of losing by doing this. I understand that's probably going to be less common than more common, so to speak, but I just feel like they're leaving a lot of gray area, and I agree that the number system is an antiquated system, and we shouldn't always rely on numbers, but the problem and the fact of the matter is in today's world, we often look to Metacritic and OpenCritic or whatever the other platforms are as well, and that kind of gauges people's interest in the games. And if you start having more outlets have less numbered reviews, you're basically making those other outlets that still do numbered reviews higher weighted on Metacritic. So if you have outlet A, B, and C that are doing numbered reviews on Metacritic, and you have IGN that doesn't do a numbered review, that review number might be skewed based on those other outlets that still do numbers, if that makes sense. It seems like it's going to be skewed if everyone was
I can understand there's going to, no matter what, be gray areas. I agree that the number system is antiquated anyways. I think it's stupid to have numbers. To begin with, I think really as gamers, we should listen to the people that we respect in the industry that have similar interests, listen to what they're saying or read what they're saying, as opposed to let me scroll down, see what the number is, and that's going to base on if I'm going to want this game or not. Because unfortunately, that's what happens, and that's why you'll never see big contributors get rid of number scores.
Right.
I mean, they've changed their point system, I think, twice now in the last, maybe it's 3 times, or at least twice in the last 8 years, where they did a 0.5 system, and that was it, basically a 20 point, like you said, and then the 100 points. So it's not that they haven't kind of gone back and forth with changing. Who knows if this will even stick. But, like, I was actually listening to Podcast Unlocked from this week, and they were kind of discussing it, and Ryan McCaffrey made a point about how the gray areas is going to kind of take him a moment to think of, because he gave an example of Titanfall, the original, and how he scored that an 8.9.
Right.
And he did not feel confident giving that a 9 due to the bare bones of Titanfall 1. It had a lot of good things going for it. It was really a great concept, and especially with like the whole inside mech, outside mech, and that still like working as one, but no single player, really very light on multiplayer too. I mean, it was enjoyable, but it was very light. So he did not feel confident giving that a 9 on their system, which would have been an amazing game. So he gave it an 8.9 to like let readers know, hey, I really think this is a great game, and it's so close to being amazing. It's just got a few things holding it back. But like, now what would you say? Would you almost, in a numerical sense, take that down by 9/10 of a point and say it's a great? So there is going to obviously be some issues with it. Either way, I personally don't care too much. Just me personally, because if it's a game that I'm interested in, I'm actually going to take the time to read that commenter's article or watch the video. I do like video reviews as well.
And I don't think, like, personally, I agree with you. I don't think that the number system sways me at all. I read the reviews that I care about as well.
We both were going to play Death Stranding no matter what review we got.
However, what I will say is this affects people that aren't really that engaged with the game industry. Like, the casual players aren't going to necessarily read in a review like that. So I feel like this.
I'm just curious how many casuals go on IGN though to read a review.
Quite a bit.
I don't know. I'm not one, so I have no idea.
Just because IGN is the most popular gaming outlet as far as reviews go, like they're the clear number one media outlet for games and for entertainment in general. So the thing is this won't affect us at all. This doesn't change our opinions or whatever we think about a certain game, because we're going to read the reviews and we're going to trust certain people to give us their impressions. But I think this will have an impact possibly on people who don't read reviews, who just scroll down to the number, and that's like your more casual player, or maybe even people who pass on the information. Like someone asks someone else, like, hey, what did that game get reviewed as? And someone says, oh, that got a 7. Like a 7 is very different than a 7.9, I would say. You know, it's very close to being good, or on IGN scale, very close to being great, but it's still good. So
I almost wish. So have you ever watched Clueless Gamer?
Yes,
and like I know it's a joke. I know it's a joke, but it is very funny how like he makes fun of the review scale about how kind of like it could be out of 666. A 500's a great, a like 600 is terrible, all that stuff. That's kind of how I feel, is that just read what the reviewer is telling you or listen to what the reviewer is telling you. But like we said, they're a company, obviously. I mean, only time will tell how well this goes. It'll really depend on those editors themselves, on how they kind of adapt to this new scale. Is this going to hurt, say, in your opinion, obviously Halo is your favorite franchise, say in your opinion Halo Infinite comes out and it's a 9.5. Okay, so do they then round up or do they round down? And like, is that fair to the game or the developer in the end?
And it could cause problems as far as like game sales, like, because game sales are traditionally linked to critical acclaim. Not always. There's obviously situations where I
was going to say, I think Rockstar could have a terrible game and they're still going to sell it.
Exactly. And there's certain Call of Duty, same way. They could have an awful Call of Duty game and it still sells well.
Yeah, Ghosts.
But for the most part, those lower tier games or mid tier games often rely on those reviews to be reviewed well in order for people to purchase the game. But
yeah, well, and it also too gives you I guess like my only thought is I feel personally to kind of wrap up is just that you're going to see a lot more games, I think, from this outlet being a little bit more heavily criticized and maybe a little bit more thorough thought is going to be put into it. Like if I played, say, Control, which I was talking about that I played that game. If I were an IGN employee, I'd be like, okay, that's probably in my mind like a 9.3. Cool. That's how I feel. So now I'm only thinking that it's a 9. Okay, well, when everything's going to get centered up on the screen on a commercial break saying what I gave it. Okay, so now I just gave it a 9 out of 10. When in reality, if you are mom or dad picking up a game for their kid, I know they're not going to pick up Control, but still.
Right.
So you see something a 9 out of 10 instead of a 9.3 out of 10,
Yeah.
it might sway you. I don't know. I don't think like that, but maybe some people do. You could be right.
And it also, and I'm trying not to draw this out, but like you're putting games in the same category that may not necessarily belong in the same category. You might have multiple games that are 9s, but some are better than others that don't necessarily belong next to each other, if that makes sense. Not necessarily
It would,
9,
because like honestly, I'm thinking about two specific ones right now, Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2. Bayonetta 2 is far superior game.
Yeah.
It is one of probably the best action games that you'll ever play in your entire life. Bayonetta 1 was an amazing game, but in this rating scale, they would be both rated the same, and I would disagree. But I would also not agree that Bayonetta 2 should get a 10. I would say Bayonetta now would be, or 2 would be a 9, and then Bayonetta, the first one, would be an 8.
Bayonetta 2 got a 10?
Bayonetta 2 actually got a 9.5 in IGN.
Jesus.
I don't think you've ever played it, but
No.
it is one of the best action games you'll ever play in your life.
Cool. All right, so moving on, Respawn CEO Vince Zampella is taking over EA's DICE LA studio, and he is rebranding it with plans for a brand new IP. So they are basically reforming the image of this studio to be a brand new title for the studio, and also a new IP being announced as well in the future. This is, I think, a testament to how well Vince Zampella has done in his career. Vince Zampella has absolutely killed it. Back in the early days of EA, he helped create Medal of Honor. He moved on to the Call of Duty franchise, and obviously
Medal of Honor was good.
Medal of Honor was?
Yeah, that's what I said. Remember when Medal of Honor was good?
Yeah, that was when Vince Zampella was there. So that, and then Call of Duty Modern Warfare, he revolutionized that. And then obviously the whole deal with Activision, he got fired or whatever all went on there, that fiasco with Activision. And he created Respawn, and Respawn's made nothing but good games. Titanfall 2, I almost said Respawn, Apex Legends, and obviously Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order this past fall. And this is a testament to EA just saying, hey, we trust you. You need to basically build this studio up, because the DICE LA studio has historically been a support studio for DICE in Stockholm, Sweden, who makes the Battlefield and Battlefront games. They've always been a support studio, and now they're basically getting their own identity to make something new and original under his direction. So I think this is great news, personally.
The only thing is I just worry about giving one person too many eggs in their basket. That would be the only thing. Like I don't want to see, I guess, a hindrance on Respawn as a studio because he doesn't have his fingers in there at the moment. Because like we said, and you just said, Respawn does not make a bad game. So if efforts are concentrated somewhere else where he's not as an overseer, again, I don't know what his day-to-day looks like. He might not have that much besides like a managerial position, in the sense of that he just, hey, how's this going? Cool, thanks.
Yep.
That type of thing. And it could be the people under him. But still, I always look at that head or CEO as somebody who's going to right the ship that it's wrong. And you want to make sure that everything's going okay, because they continue to knock it out of the park.
And to be fair, they do have very good leadership in charge. They have they announced actually that Stig, who is with Respawn, that came over from God of War team, Santa Monica.
That sounds very familiar.
I think it's Stig, yeah. But Stig is basically going to helm the future of the Star Wars Jedi games. So obviously they're in great hands because he's the one who came over and pretty much built Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. And I completely trust Stig, and I think that he will very much be in capable hands with that. Apex Legends is being helmed by the guy who helped co-create Apex Legends, so I think they're fine in that regard. I think more than anything, I think that Vince Zampella knows how to manage his people. And I think that's the most important thing here is giving them a direction and saying, hey, do whatever you want, but this is your direction, go for it. And I think this is going to be a testament to him. And if he could turn around Dice LA into another amazing studio for EA, that would be absolutely awesome.
Whatever they can do, I guess, to keep the Star Wars license at this point.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have to, because Disney is not going to just let one studio have that.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that.
Unless EA gives them a huge amount of money again.
I don't know if Disney needs the money.
Yeah.
They own everything in the world at this point.
Yep. So, our next news story, there was a new leak from the DualShock 5 controller that has actually appeared on the internet. It apparently has come from cleaners who have been cleaning Ubisoft's office, or so they say. The interesting thing here is Ryan McCaffrey said this on Twitter, which I completely agree with. Why would Sony, or I'm sorry, not Sony, why would a cleaner post on social media that they have this leaked image of a PlayStation 5 controller with the PlayStation 5 dev kit and say, please don't share this post on a public social media page? It doesn't make sense in that regard. So what Ryan said, and I think he's spot on, is that either Ubisoft or Sony leaked this purposefully in order to generate hype or awareness or whatever you want to call it for PlayStation 5, which makes sense completely to me. And as he said, it just doesn't make sense that a cleaner would be that stupid to say, don't share this post on social media. Like, obviously people are going to share it if they see it. So
I don't know. I'm at this point, Daniel and I were talking about this before, I'm so tired of leaks. Tired of leak culture, all this crap. I know this is going to be one of the most difficult years, as long as we're not in a war, as far as getting consoles and all this information and everything coming up. It's just, I want to play what's coming. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to see it or like think that I'm seeing it, I guess. Like, we didn't put it as a news story, but the fake Xbox ports that came out, right?
Oh,
like,
AMD mistakenly took an image from a random website instead of from Microsoft.
Until they both, which we assume they'll both have a press conference, not outside of E3, until we have those, at this moment, I honestly just want to go dark. I mean, I might like to hear about some games. I don't need to hear anything about the consoles until they're ready to announce, and maybe even ready to announce the prices, because that's what I'm trying to brace myself for.
Yeah. It's just the nature of the industry is leaks.
It is,
I mean,
yeah.
It always happens. It's every year, even before E3, there's always something that gets leaked.
This year actually wasn't that, or sorry, this past
year was pretty good for the first time in a while. But, yeah, that's kind of the nature of the
Well, and then PlayStation 5 also showed off, like, their logo, too, right?
Yeah, which I have that next. We could do that next if you want.
I was doing a transition for you.
Okay, yeah. We can do that next. So, yeah, the PlayStation 5 logo was revealed at CES at Sony's press conference. So, the crazy part about this logo is it's very original. Like, it doesn't look like anything I've ever seen before. Except it is. It's literally just the PlayStation 4 logo, except with the 5 on it.
Don't forget they're going up to PlayStation 9 via that commercial that came out 10 years ago where it was like all VR but not VR. So just wait for that one.
So PS5 logo, that's all we got from CES. They said more to come later on. Obviously, that will be interesting to see when that gets fully revealed, the console and everything, to kind of compare it to Xbox Series X. But also that Sony did announce some numbers as well from their CES press conference, which I thought was kind of interesting. So they announced 106 million PlayStation 4 systems has been sold. 5 million PlayStation VR units have been sold.
A lot more than I thought.
And 1.15 billion games on PlayStation 4 have been sold, which is an astronomical number. But obviously you said a lot more than you expected for VR.
I thought 4. I know it's only 1 million more, but 5 million. That means Black Friday, in my opinion, probably had a really good effect.
5 million,
with a lot of people kind of jumping in on that, which I like. I still like that they're supporting everything with VR.
Yeah.
That they're continuing to make games. A game I'll talk about later on. I really like that. I know it's such a small percentage. Only 5. It's basically a little less than 5%.
Yeah.
But I still like that they're supporting that less than 5% gamers that want that experience.
And that to me is going to be the question for next gen, because how long are they going to support it at that low of an install base? Because at the end of the day, they're a company. They have to make money, and obviously they're making money on the headsets. They're probably not taking a loss on the headset, I wouldn't think.
Probably not at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And
they're not losing money on the moves.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. They're making money on that if they sell a move.
Yeah. And the thing is I think the longevity is the thing that we need to be a little concerned about for PlayStation VR and VR in general, because the install base has to be there, or else companies aren't going to keep coming back making VR games, because they're not going to make enough money off of them to make more. Like, companies may make a VR game, like, for the first time, like a new company makes a VR game, and then they go away from it because they're like, hey, this isn't profitable enough for us to stay alive. Like, even the smaller developers, not necessarily indies, because they
I guess
have a lower...
It really depends. I mean, Squanchy Games, Justin Roiland's team, has already made 3 VR games, so...
Right. But
they must be seeing something.
However, they are like a very small team, like less than 10 people.
They are, yes.
I'm saying more like the mid-tier developer, like someone who's like 50.
London studio,
right?
That did Blood and Truth this past year.
So that's the problem in the longevity, because you have a higher expense when you're paying 50 plus employees to make a VR experience that may only get to a couple million people, because obviously the whole install base of 5 million users isn't going to buy that game, even though there are some great games that get a high install base.
There is a plus side, at least going forward into this next generation, is that those 5 million people can use their PSVR on the next PS5.
Right.
Again, I have some issues with it. I do think we're going to see a refresh of it. I don't think it's anything they're going to drop. My main criticism, obviously, when I get the PS5 and I hook up my VR unit, I'm going to be playing with essentially PS3 controllers.
Yes.
Just because of the move.
That's
my biggest issue with it.
Which, that's great that you can use your PSVR on PS5. The only other thing is the amount of people that are buying a PlayStation 5 most likely already own PSVR. So, like, I would say probably in this is just me speculating, but I would say in the ballpark of like 90% of people who buy a PlayStation 5 at launch already have a PlayStation VR.
Do you think that high?
Just because... if you think about it, if they already have PlayStation VR, they're going to buy a PlayStation 5. They're not going to buy a PlayStation 5 for PlayStation VR, if you know what I'm saying. Like, if they wanted PlayStation VR, they can get it on PlayStation 4, but I just don't see... My problem with VR has always been, is it going to keep getting new people into the experience? If people already have PlayStation VR on PS4 and just take that to PS5, that's not really helping Sony's numbers. That's just basically people moving from one platform to another. You know what I'm saying? It's not expanding that 5 million. I don't know.
I mean, it could be like in the case what I mentioned, like, where they haven't come out and said it, but I just bought another PlayStation 4 controller for Christmas, and now I'm going to be able to use that on PlayStation 5. Maybe that's something that people are thinking about next year when it comes to, like, hey, Black Friday deals are again. There's the PS5 system, even though I doubt it'll be in stores, just like it always happens when a console launches. It's hard to find them on those 2 sale days.
Right.
But, like, hey, I can just grab a PSVR for, like, super cheap, and it's going to work on my thing. I don't know.
I don't know.
No.
Our next news story we have is Ori and the Will of the Wisps has gotten a new collector's edition announced for $49.99. This includes the game, music CD, art book, original soundtrack, and MP3 download of the soundtrack, and a steelbook. So It's a decent deal for $50. I just personally, I probably won't pick it up just because it doesn't have anything like substantial that I'm really like thinking I would want it for. I guess
A statue would be cool.
yeah,
But
something like
obviously I
that.
don't have that.
Obviously, that would be more expensive, but $50 for what you get here, that's fair price for people who want that. It's just maybe not necessarily something I will get. I'll just get the digital version through Game Pass.
I was going to
actually.
say, I'm going to
So,
play it through Game Pass, but I just really want it on Switch.
Yeah. So I don't really care if it goes on Switch, but I mean, more power to them. If it gets more people to play it, I'll 100% be on board for that. Next, we have another leak, which I know my co-host absolutely loves leaks, so I'll definitely mention that. This
is a continuous leak since basically for like 2.5 years.
Yeah, this is a new leak of the same thing, but there's apparently a PlayStation, a Nintendo Switch Pro that is in the works, reportedly coming the middle of 2020. So basically, they're saying a higher-end Switch will come out this year. Obviously, last year we got both the Switch Lite and the new version of the Switch, which has the better battery life. But the thing that I think is important about this is they need to do something in order to keep the third-party support. Because when the new consoles come this fall actually, I keep saying next fall, but
It still
this
feels
fall,
like 2019.
yeah. When the new consoles come this fall, they're going to lose third-party support on the Switch if they don't do something. Because it's very difficult as it is to port games to the Switch from Xbox One and PS4, but when you're going from Xbox Series X and PS5 to the Switch, that's an astronomical leap that they're going to have to bridge the gap somehow. Otherwise, they're going to lose the likes of Ubisoft, EA, Activision.
Well, EA, you don't have to mention.
Well,
EA has no faith in the Switch.
That's true.
They have totally squandered any opportunity to
Right.
do anything well on the Switch.
But just third parties in general.
Yeah, I mean, so I understand where you're coming from when it comes to a Switch Pro for it or an upgraded Switch. I'm personally very content with my Switch. Yes, I am upset that mine is a launch Switch, so I don't have that better battery life. That'd be great not to have, like, a game I've been playing, I can only play it for about like 3.5 hours, little less before my battery dies. So it is very frustrating that the new one I could get double that time. But I'm very content with everything with my Switch. It does what I need it to do. The games that I want to play on it are fantastic. We know that Nintendo does such a good job with the art direction and the design of their own games. So to utilize their systems, they always, have done that. So it's not something that I necessarily need, but I do see the want from it when it comes to what's coming this year. Mm-hmm. I don't want to invest in another console when I'm already definitely investing in one. I want to see what the Lockhart version of the series Xbox is going to be. I don't need a third one as well.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with you that it's definitely going to add more expenses that are not really necessary. And I agree in the sense that I only use my Switch for Nintendo exclusives. I don't play like Diablo 3 like you've played or like other third-party games on there. But we've seen in the past, as we saw with Wii U, the success of a console is oftentimes backed on third-party support. If you don't have that, yes, there's great games that Nintendo puts out, but you have to have that third-party support, or you're not going to get the big numbers like Wii.
The only thing I'll say is as far as a little bit of correction, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this thought, but Wii U's problem was not third-party. Wii U's problem was first-party more, because their first-party support, while fantastic, the few games they had, they were like N64. They were few and far between. The year that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came out, there was that, Super Mario Brothers U, and Bayonetta 2. Yeah. That was it. As far as from there. And granted, I know third parties helped that, and they did have some great indies with that. I mean, Shovel Knight was a launch on that too. But it's not going to do anything at that when everybody already looks at their Nintendo console as a Nintendo first party thing that you want to buy. When you don't have that stuff too, you're already screwed.
Yeah. I feel like there was a lot of Wii U games personally, like Super Mario Maker, Super Mario 3D World, Splatoon. While it's not my cup of tea, it was a big deal. Smash obviously came for Wii U. Breath of the Wild was obviously later on when Switch came out, but obviously.
But the gaps between those were few and far between.
Yeah,
and when you don't have the third party, then it's affected. But
Yeah.
like, so Xbox, we've talked to, or Microsoft has a very good first party lineup this year. They have pretty much good bangers starting in, I think, March. Ori is the first one. So they have pretty much a consistent line finally coming up this year. Sony has a little bit less, but still a lot of first parties coming out too. We only know of one first party Nintendo this year. We only have Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
That's it. That is known. Obviously, we'll find out more.
Do we know? Is there more than Uncharted Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima?
They have a few other ones from smaller studios. I couldn't name off my head.
That was the only two I could think of off the top of my head that they have announced. But obviously, there's going to be unannounced stuff for PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
That God game.
Knack 3.
Oh, God, no. That God game that's being published by Gearbox is a PlayStation 5 launch game.
But I don't know if that's published by them, is it? Because I thought it was just Gearbox.
Gearbox published. Yeah. But it's essentially like a second party arrangement where it's a first party game on a third party developer. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this. I feel like Nintendo maybe feels like they have to do something or else they're going to fall behind. And we saw with Witcher 3, for instance, that barely runs on Switch at a very low resolution at less than 30 frames per second. Dreams. Yes, you're right. Dreams. But, yeah. I don't know. That'll be interesting to see there. We'll go ahead and move on to the next news story. There's a new Lord of the Rings Gollum game that has been confirmed for PlayStation 5, Xbox, and PC. So this is interesting in the realm of the announcement, just because they talk about this game being like a different interpretation of Gollum. So they're trying a different idea with Gollum. They talk about how Tolkien didn't give a size reference for Gollum to begin with, and that in the first illustrations, he's actually gigantic and he's a monster emerging from the swamp. So this sounds intriguing, but the only thing is I'm looking here. The developer is Daedalic Entertainment, and they're not really a well-known studio per se. They have a bunch of games that have come out that have been very lackluster because I don't know any of them. I'm just looking at the list here, and there's like Goodbye Deponia, A Year of Rain, The Night of the Rabbit, Blackguards. I mean, there's just a whole lot of games that are just like, I don't know these, and they seem like a very small developer. I don't know a lot about them.
Oh, Felix the Reaper. That came out this past year.
Okay.
That got good reviews. It's on Game Pass. I haven't played it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's the only one I recognize, honestly.
That's the concerning thing with this, is they've never worked with anything on this level. Lord of the Rings is something on a whole nother level, and obviously everything they've worked on thus far has been an original thing that's a little game. Like, it seems like they've made a lot of little games and not anything substantial, so to say. So even though what you're saying, that the Reaper game, Felix the Reaper, came out to well praise, it's obviously not anything on the level of Lord of the Rings.
I don't understand everyone's obsession with Gollum. I'll never get that. Like, just make Shadow 3.
Yeah, true.
Or Mordor 3.
Still have to beat Shadow of War. So we'll move on to games we're playing. Still playing Halo the Master Chief Collection, Halo Reach in there. I'm not going to delve into that because that's every week. I did start Detroit Become Human, which is only the second time that I've turned on my PlayStation 4 since I moved in to my new house.
Missing out.
It's a really...
Turned on my Xbox One once.
Yeah, well... The first time I turned on the PS4 was just for the Modern Warfare Alpha, so I wouldn't even really count that. But anyways, Detroit Become Human. I really liked the detective episode, chapter, which was the first chapter of the game. It was really interesting. I liked piecing together the puzzle of the whole crime that occurred, and then having your actions that happen in the game, as far as what evidence you collect, what things you see, what things you discover in the environment, and then connecting that to the story where you encounter someone and try to diffuse a situation in this occurrence in the first chapter. I really liked that. However, the next 2 chapters I absolutely hated. It was a lot of mundane tasks like clean the rooms and do this and move this and talk to him and move here. And I'm not one that hates walking simulators like you do. I like many of those types of experiences, but this was feeling very mundane. I kept doing things that are mundane, and I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to build a narrative around what this one guy was doing. He was basically a giant druggie that they were trying to pen him as like an awful guy. I totally get that. It's just in this circumstance, I didn't feel like it actually made myself worthwhile for my time playing it. It just didn't feel like it respected my time. That's the reason why I didn't really like those couple of chapters. I'm probably going to go back to it and try to do some more. I got to the next detective mission and it was good as well, so we'll see if that continues. I really like to
kill off the other 2 characters and play as the detective.
Yeah, I'd really just like a game just as the detective the entire game. Like, I don't know why they didn't just do that. That would have been very much up my alley. But anyways, that's my thoughts on Detroit.
So the first game I played and beat actually a few hours ago finally, after dying like 50 times, is Guacamelee, the first one. I wanted to replay it to kind of amp myself up for Guacamelee 2. It's a game I got for Christmas, so I've been very much looking forward to playing it. Not much needs to be said about Guacamelee as far as the original. It's got a legacy of its own. Drinkbox, am I right? It's not Soapbox, it's Drinkbox. I always want to say Soapbox. Has a pretty good repertoire when it comes to now indie games with their Guacamelee series.
Yep.
I've never played Severed, but I know it got very good reviews when it came out. But Guacamelee is a fantastic Metroidvania that is actually very funny. Maybe a little bit outdated if you play it now, but it is still very funny. The second one, it's looked like it's ramping up to be the same, but I just love the Guacamelee, and obviously I can't get enough Metroidvanias because that's what I keep playing. My next game is actually a PSVR game, and we were kind of talking about it with Squanchy Games, is Trover Saves the Universe. So I know you have never seen Rick and Morty,
Nope.
which I find just mind-bending because I think it's right up your alley. But it is made by Justin Roiland and his team, and then he voices pretty much, it feels like, all the characters, and it's just all the things you loved about Rick and Morty without those 2 characters. It was like I was in my VR chair just laughing. I was dying. I know you weren't in the house at all, but I was like just crying laughing by some of the stuff. It's to be expected that it's incredibly adult. And that's just how it is, but it's very much knows it's a game. It comments on how it's a game, and it's the fourth wall breaking makes it even better. The gameplay actually, like, so you play as a Chairmorpian. You are as the person that's in the VR, you are stuck in a chair, and that's what your race does as aliens, is you guys just are in chairs and you move around. Basically like WALL-E, the humans that were like that. And then you get to meet Trover, who you actually control, and you just watch him kind of perform the actions that you're controlling, just like you would any other game. But, like, obviously your perspective changes because you're in VR, you're controlling the camera with your head and all that stuff, and just the stuff that can happen is hilarious. So, like, I remember, like, in instances that I was, like, going around, like, oh, I want to just check this out. It's VR. That's so cool to see. And then Trover just makes a comment, hey, is this your first time in VR? Like, I get it, but we got things to do. And I was just like, I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah.
Or, like, one of the first side quests that you have to do is you have to save this farmer's cattle, basically, or version of cattle. And you're like, okay, well, I see cattle in this pen right here. So you have to save it from an infection. So I'm like, okay, well, I just did my lightsaber attack because that's basically what it is. And he's like, no, you killed them. You killed all of them. And then
God.
they're like, well, they all look the same. And they're like, well, then you think all aliens look the same and all this stuff. And it goes into this whole diatribe about how now everyone in the planet thinks Trover's a racist. And then you kill so many innocent people because you think you're doing the right thing. It's so funny. I know you've never played those games or anything like that, but it was maybe 3 hours or something like that. It's a lot of fun. The DLC's all free too. I checked that out as well. It's just hilarious. I hope that the Squanchy Games keeps continuing to go off of this stuff. I know they actually expressed interest in making a sequel to the game already.
Cool. What didn't they make something before Trevor Saves the Universe too? That was VR.
Rick and Morty, Rickality.
Gotcha. Did you play that?
I demoed it. I did not play it. So I don't know if you ever heard of the VR game called Job Simulator.
Yes.
So it was a fancy way to show off the VR units in the beginning, and they are funny, but it was just a job simulator version with Rick and Morty.
Gotcha.
And for $30, I didn't think that was kind of worthwhile to me. Job Simulator was cool when I was like starting to show people off like what VR is,
Gotcha.
but it's like not a game that you just want to consistently keep playing and playing and playing.
Gotcha. Okay. We'll move on to the topic of the show. Games of the Decade is our topic of the show this week. So we're going to just go through each year and kind of name off our favorites from each year. This was very difficult some of these years. There was quite a few games that each of us were struggling with. So obviously like 2017, that was a hard one. 2018, that's a hard one. I think like 2013, that was a hard one as well for
2013, 2017 were my hardest ones.
Yeah, 2013, 17, and 18 were my hardest. Like, there's so many good games in those 3 years, it's insane. And 2019, we will reveal next week. Next week, we're going to do our Game of the Year for 2019. If you listened last week, I already spoiled what my Game of the Year is, but we'll
You haven't
kind of
played Sekiro. How can you already say it's Sekiro?
Yeah, no, definitely not. So moving on first, 2010, back all the way to 2010. Lots of great games that came out that year. Fallout New Vegas, all kinds of stuff. Halo Reach. And my favorite would be Mass Effect 2. The best Mass Effect game in the entire trilogy. Yes, I'm not counting Andromeda. Mass Effect 2 was such an amazing game. It took what they based the original off of and just expanded in every way. The game looked amazing at the time using Unreal Engine. It was absolutely phenomenal. I absolutely love that game. The characters, Commander Shepard, all of the crew members that you have, the suicide mission, all of that was absolutely incredible. How the game starts, I'm not going to necessarily spoil that because I don't want to have some people pissed off at me or whatever, but the beginning of Mass Effect 2 just throws you for a loop just from the beginning. So, like, that game is just a masterclass in all respects. The gameplay was great as well with combining, like, powers with combat. That was a super smart idea from the original Mass Effect, but it did feel a little clunky in the original Mass Effect, and 2, I just really feel like refined that quite a bit, so that's mine.
So 2010 for me is Red Dead Redemption. This came out, if I remember right, like right after I got out of college that year. Like in May. And I sunk so much time into this world. I never played Red Dead Revolver, but they were like basically comparing it to GTA, and I like GTA, so I gave it a win and I fell in love with this game. At the time, everything was so great. And the biggest spoiler for me was I thought I was done with the game, and then I went to Mexico and realized I was only halfway through the game.
Yep.
Just insane in that sense that I was not done at all. And the map opened up so much more. I mean, it just felt like you were truly in the Wild West for it. And then later on that year to have, in my opinion, the best DLC to ever come out for any game, which is Undead Nightmare, just took that game to the next level. To have that be essentially a zombie apocalypse type game set in Western setting was awesome. I couldn't believe like that was something that I was able to play in that setting too.
Yeah.
Special shout out for me because I think we're gonna do a couple shout outs or some stuff.
Sure.
But if I remember right, I thought Dark Souls came out that year.
2010.
Yeah. But Do you have that lined up?
Yeah.
Where was it? Oh no, actually go back. You had it. God of War 3.
God of War 3.
Yeah, I was kind of debating on that one, but I only played God of War 3 twice, and like I really liked it. I liked how they wrapped up that part of Kratos' story, but I just super enjoyed the time that I played with Red Dead, and even online a year later, because initially online was broken when you played it.
I know we're doing 2011 now, so could we just both agree that 2011, the best game of 2011 was Duke Nukem Forever? It took 20 years for the game to come out, and it came out in 2011.
So we're on 2012?
No, I'm kidding.
No, we're on 2012.
Totally kidding. Duke Nukem Forever was the worst freaking purchase in my entire life.
Oh, you bought it?
Yes. At launch.
So I had it pre-ordered back at GameStop back in the OOs.
Yeah.
And like I canceled that after I think the third delay or something like that.
It's insane. 2011 had a lot of great games: Skyrim, Batman Arkham City, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, LA Noire, Uncharted 3. So really good year. My pick, though, for 2011 is Assassin's Creed Revelations. In my opinion, Assassin's Creed Revelations is the most underrated Assassin's Creed game in the entire series. A lot of people gave it a lot of crap for it focusing on both Altair and Ezio, and also they claimed that it didn't have as much...
See, I felt like Brotherhood was always more underrated, but you might be right. I guess
Brotherhood is beloved. Like, everyone loves Brotherhood from what I've heard, and I love Brotherhood as well, but... Revelations, in my opinion, it just wraps up that Ezio storyline so good, and I loved how much they tied in Altair as well, and this story really just makes that game absolutely amazing, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's my 2011.
I would agree 2011 had some amazing games. Another game that I thought of, besides Dark Souls, was Dead Space 2, which is my favorite Dead Space. Well, yours is 1.
Yeah.
We both said they're good. Don't give me the
Yeah, 2 is a little bit less, though.
Little Big Planet 2 as well. I love that game. But it's Portal 2. So it's the game that we'll never get a sequel to because it's a 3. It would have to be a 3. So... The reason why I will cherish this game forever is because it had one of the funniest scripts in a puzzle game, and honestly in a game in general. Stephen Merchant being essentially the new Gladys in a way. It was just so hilarious the entire time you're doing all the puzzles. But really what it came down for me was the co-op mode. It was like a separate game entirely that you could play with a friend. So my friend Chris came over, and I think we played it for the entire day to beat it. And it was just hilarity ensued because of the simple fact of us both trying to solve the puzzles and our minds both working differently on how we should solve it, and always having to come to a consensus. Okay, well, who's going to launch? Who's going to try to fire at the same time? All this stuff. So, I mean, in my opinion, it is the second best puzzle game in the entire world next to Tetris.
It's the best co-op game.
It is one of the best co-op games. But it was just, it was such a blast. I know... We always would wish for a Portal 3. Honestly, I will take a remastered version of Portal 2. Like, if they did, we were talking about having, a Orange Box 2 type thing. Like, even if they don't have new games, but, put, your Left 4 Dead 2, your Portal 2, stuff like that in there, just to play. I want to experience that again. I know I'll never experience it again for the first time, but still, great game.
It is, agreed. So moving on, 2012, another good year for games. There was some new IPs like Dishonored and the first season of The Walking Dead. Mass Effect 3 came out. You got Max Payne 3, Halo 4, Assassin's Creed 3. No one thought that was the best game. Tons of games that came out that year.
It had potential to be a good game.
Yeah, Darksiders 2 and What was the
underrated?
Word? Underrated.
I think it's rated appropriately. I do really enjoy it, but I understand why people.
Yeah, but lots of good games. My choice though for 2012 is Diablo 3. So Diablo 3, great top-down looter dungeon crawler. Sorry,
the original basically.
It's essentially a looter top-down shooter, whatever you want to call that.
It's just a dungeon crawler.
Yeah, dungeon crawler. Yeah. But Borderlands basically took that and
made it first person.
Yes. So Diablo 3 I absolutely loved. I played for probably 100 plus hours, which is a lot for me for a single player game. Really enjoyed it. And technically I'm kind of cheating when I say that because I played the console version, which didn't come out 2012, but
It was 2013 or 2014.
I think it was 2013.
Yeah.
But either way, it's a great game. And
well, in the end, you're kind of smarter for that because of the system. I can't remember what the trading system was, but it was completely broken basically on PC. And that got a lot of criticism for it.
Yep.
A shout out for me would actually be, I totally forgot this came out this year, Max Payne 3. I actually really loved Max Payne 3. I've loved those other two games. But actually mine is Borderlands 2. I've always talked fondly of the Borderlands series, and this, in my opinion, is still the best Borderlands game. I really enjoyed 3 that came out this past year, but you don't get much better than Anthony Burch's writing in 2, with that story, with everything going on, the characters, Krieg coming out obviously like a year later, but still having that. I mean, my friend Chris and I just sitting on the couch for 8 hours, like for 2 solid weeks, and just playing. Tiny Tina's Dungeon Keep came out as well the following year, but still one of the amazing DLC actually with his sister Ashley Birch, and she kind of started making a name for herself in the gaming industry with that. So I mean, just a great next step for Borderlands after the first one. And obviously we know the third one came out this past year, so I will always hold that game. Regardless of your opinion, a certain person, I will always hold that game in such high regard.
Which it's funny, I was just thinking of this. We were talking before about Avengers Endgame kind of being like the pinnacle of the series, or not pinnacle, but like wrapping up everything. I feel like Borderlands 3 was very much the Avengers Endgame of the Borderlands universe. It brought everyone back essentially and just said,
even Tales of the Borderlands, like we said.
Right.
Yeah.
So 2013 we're moving on to, had great freaking games in 2013. This was very difficult for me.
Probably the second best year in gaming this decade.
Probably. BioShock Infinite, Grand Theft Auto 5, Tomb Raider, the original, Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, Super Mario 3D World, Saints Row 4, Metro, crap, I just said mine. But anyways, tons of great games that came out 2013, DMC. So my choice, obviously, as I said, Metro Last Light. The game, in my opinion, the game of Metro Last Light, it has the best atmosphere in any game I've ever played. Like, the amount of tension that you feel in the subway system or metro system is just insane. Like, they make it close quarters and they make it dark and gritty and difficult, and it's everything I love about the Metro series all wrapped in together. The first game was well known for being very bare bones, and it had a good story, but it was very basic. Last Light expanded on it in every way, and it's absolutely one of my favorite games of all time.
So a few games that you did mention, actually, Guacamelee came out that year.
Yep.
Metal Gear Rising, Revengeance, which I actually found to be a very fun action game. And then also the first season of The Wolf Among Us, which we know, I'm saying the first season because we're getting a second now. Or I guess not second season, but just Wolf Among Us 2.
Yeah.
But it's hard to top, in my opinion, that year, The Last of Us. Such an impactful game. I mean, we've kind of talked to this ad nauseum at this point with it. It's one of the only games recently in the last 10 years that's probably made me feel. Just gave me emotions that I did not think I would at all experience that quickly into a game.
I heard that.
It's just... I'm obviously very excited for this year coming up to see what they're going to do to expand on it. But this is probably... hands down one of the best descriptions of, like, if you asked me to take a game that was a description of Last Generation, it would be this.
Yeah. And honestly, if you hadn't picked Last of Us, I probably would have picked it. But since you had picked it, I wanted to pick something else. And Metro Last Light, I absolutely love.
Yeah, that was actually the only Metro that I even played, and I enjoyed it. I mean, we're not giving, like, a quote-unquote a definitive list. These are just kind of our personal favorites, and we're giving some shout-outs. But, like, honestly, for both of us... I think besides maybe like one or two exceptions on both sides, like these are games that we both loved.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So moving on to 2014, we had great games such as Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, Dragon Age Inquisition, Dark Souls 2. What?
Dark Souls 2 is not one of the greatest.
Oh.
It's an okay game. It is
Sorry.
not a great Dark Souls game.
I didn't mean to offend you Dark Souls fans out there.
It is the lesser known.
No. Destiny, Far Cry 4, which is a very good game as well. Titanfall, the original. I didn't realize how many great games came out in 2014, actually. Stick of Truth.
Yeah, I didn't see all these, to be honest with you. And now that I am, I'm like, I'm about to cry. Because I'm like, maybe 2014 was better.
It was. It was very good. Sunset Overdrive. Lots of really
Velocity
good games.
2X. I don't know if you ever got Infamous Second Son.
Yeah, absolutely. Evil Within, the original. Definitely a lot of good games in 2014.
Man. I didn't even realize that.
Especially considering it's only the second year in the console life cycle, which is just crazy. But my choice is an easy one because it includes essentially 6 games in one, and that is Halo: The Master Chief Collection. Now, if you had asked me this on November 11th, 2014, what my favorite if that was my favorite
Can I
game.
play online, please?
Yeah, I'd say, wow, why can't I freaking connect online? What is going on? So, yes, Halo: The Master Chief Collection has come a long way since that day. Obviously, the last year and a half to 2 years, they have extremely done justice to that game. They completely rebuilt the game with 2 new studios that have worked on it. They completely stripped it all away and remade it. Brought in Halo Reach, brought in Halo 3 ODST. It is such a phenomenal value. Honestly, I don't think that anyone could discount the value in that game. That game has possibly the greatest value in gaming history, just because of the amount of campaign maps, the amount of campaigns, the amount of multiplayer maps, the amount of modes, the amount of game engines that game has is insane. There's hundreds. Not just tens, hundreds of multiplayer maps, hundreds of campaign missions. There's so much there that it's just such a great experience now, and I definitely recommend, if you haven't played it in a while, pick it up.
I think we shouted them all out. Mine is actually Bayonetta 2. We just got done talking about this, but I can't reiterate enough that if you ever get a chance to play this, I'm kind of actually sad that the Vanquish Bayonetta edition does not come with the Bayonetta 2 that's coming out in February. I thought that was a missed opportunity, though I understand that is a Nintendo exclusive because Nintendo published it. But it was amazing on the Wii U. It's great on the Switch. Honestly, see it on sale, I would pick it up personally because I just love that game. The combat got so much better. That was really the quintessential Platinum A-Team method. I mean, I could tell you nothing about the story, but that's Bayonetta or any of those Japanese type games. But just the combat and the fluidity of everything was just awesome.
Cool. Moving to 2015, we have Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Phantom Pain, Fallout 4, Bloodborne.
Phantom Pain's a lot of people's, though.
I just said yours. Whoops.
Why would you say that?
I know. Rocket League, Batman Arkham Knight, Super Mario Maker, Splatoon,
Ori,
Halo 5 Guardians, which had a terrible campaign but great multiplayer. Ori, Until Dawn, Star Wars Battlefront, Mad Max, Destiny, The Taken King, so much stuff in 2015. Mine is Rise of the Tomb Raider. So the original Tomb Raider reboot was really good, but Rise of the Tomb Raider, I feel like, stepped it up every step of the way. It had a lot more open areas than the original had, so you could kind of explore more. There was more tombs that you could discover that had a lot of puzzles involved, which I loved. Obviously, there's the whole controversy over it being an Xbox One exclusive for a year, whatever. The game was great, and people finally got to play it on PlayStation as well. But, I just really love that second entry.
So this should come as no surprise because it's really what started my love of this genre, but Bloodborne came out that year, and I was not expecting to love this game as much as I have. It's amazing the legacy that this has become now in PlayStation's wheelhouse. I actually remember Phil Spencer tweeting out to PlayStation about this game when it came out. because I mean he understood like what FromSoft did, and it was a very good get for PlayStation at this point, even though technically they owed Sony another Demon Souls and they didn't do that. But I mean, nothing. I can't really say too much more about Bloodborne. Amazing story that you obviously have to find. The action, the combat is a lot more fast paced than Dark Souls, but still with methodical in there being attacking, and it's just unbridled gore.
Yeah.
I mean, just ridiculous gore that just like it creeps you out. I mean, some of those monsters and creations could give anybody nightmares.
Yeah.
It also has like the hardest boss in all the Dark Souls for me.
Oh, really?
That's the DLC that came out later. It's actually the last part of the DLC. It's in this like town, but like if you ever watch a video on it, he is so like I consider myself pretty good at those games.
Yeah.
It took me maybe like 50, 60 tries to finally beat him. It was so hard.
No, thank you. Moving on to 2016, we've got games like Overwatch, Doom, Titanfall 2, Inside, which I kind of forgot about that, Dishonored 2, The Witness, Dark Souls 3, Firewatch, a lot of good bangers there.
Gears 4.
Gears 4, yes, it was essentially remade from the
Division. Quantum Break.
Yep. Watch Dogs 2, which is underrated in my opinion.
And we were joking about this, but actually Daniel and I kind of bonded over this when we worked together. Super Mario Run. Him and I used to kind of trade like tips and stuff like that on how to get all the coins, because like that was kind of our mission, was to beat every level and get all the coins. So I mean, that was a big deal when that came out.
Agreed. So my favorite game, this was very difficult again, another very difficult decision. This one I just thought about as this is the greatest of this genre that I've ever played. So my choice is Forza Horizon 3. This is the greatest racing game I've ever played. And Forza Horizon 4, don't get me wrong, is a better game, like on paper, so to speak. I just enjoyed the environments and stuff in Forza Horizon 3 a lot better. It was Australia focused, and obviously that's pertinent now because Australia was burnt to a crisp. But Forza Horizon 3 just hit every mark possible, and it incorporated the new Drivatar system, which makes driving around the world feel real because it's real people, their avatars essentially driving around the world, and it takes on their personas. So like if they're aggressive drivers, they act aggressive, and if they're not, then they're not. So like everything they did with that game is absolutely incredible. I love that game, and the visuals are absolutely stunning as well. So
mine is it's really more of a culmination for me, and I think you would agree with that. Uncharted 4, A Thief's End came out, and I think like you, we're so invested in this franchise. I mean, started with Drake's Fortune, you got 3 other games outside of that, and then it ended with this. And granted, the third act, in our opinion, was a little too long.
Yep.
But it still had an amazing end to characters that you really cared about. Honestly, and I don't care that I'm spoiling this, but it really kind of gave Naughty Dog almost a wrap up, because you started with that game playing Crash Bandicoot on a PS1,
which was cool.
Yeah, it was a really cool thing, because I forgot how awful the first, like, so I have the Crash Bandicoot collection.
Yep.
The first game is bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it was for the time, I get it, but it's a bad game.
Yep.
But it was just so fun playing that game. And I'm like, I thought I was really good at this game, and then Elena beats me. I'm like, maybe I couldn't win, but I've seen videos where people actually beat it. And I'm like, how are you able to do that still? But it was just, first off, still gorgeous, as always. The locales, all that stuff. But, I mean, this is really about ending a franchise on a good note, and I really appreciate that they gave us a closure for Nathan Drake.
I'm sad that Uncharted 2 just missed this decade.
I know. I would put Uncharted 2.
Yeah, that's my goat.
That's my game that I died in the first, like, 3 seconds because I thought I was still watching a cutscene.
The train, yeah.
I thought I was still watching a cutscene. I didn't realize I was hanging.
Yep. So 2017, moving on to 2017, this is another very fantastic year. We have games like Horizon Zero Dawn, Resident Evil 7, PUBG, Super Mario Odyssey, Cuphead, Forgot about that. Destiny 2, Assassin's Creed Origins,
Nier Automata. I know you didn't play, but that's such a good game.
Prey, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice,
Neo.
yeah,
Hollow Knight.
absolutely, Uncharted: Lost Legacy.
All right, I'm going back to 2017.
Evil Within 2, Dishonored,
Fractured Butthole.
Yeah. Shadow of War. There's just so much.
Yeah, I'm going back to 2017, I think.
So my choice for 2017 is Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. So this is kind of a wild card for me. I really liked the first Wolfenstein, and I really liked what Machine Games had done in order to revitalize that franchise. And Wolfenstein 2, I really feel like they just upped the ante every step of the way. Wolfenstein 2 is such a good story, and like the twist, which I don't know if we should spoil that. It's only 2 years old.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't on this.
I won't spoil this, but the twist that happens about midway through the game, roughly, is really insane. Like, when it happened, I was just like, what just happened? That can't happen. Like, what happens is just unbelievable to imagine. So, like, that was definitely the coolest moment of that game, and I really enjoyed that game.
I'll keep this very brief. It's hard to not have Zelda as my number one.
Yeah.
You know me, I'm a Zelda fanatic, and this gave me everything I wanted in a Zelda game.
And to be fair, Breath of the Wild was my game of the
Yes.
year of 17. I just chose
Yeah, I
something
know,
else.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're getting a second one, but there can't be enough love said to this. I still, to this day, if I didn't have like a backlog with stuff, I still want to go back and play this game again. We talked about the DLC. Both of us never got back to, even though we had it. But it's just, I mean, it's one of the greatest games, not of just this decade, but of all time.
Agreed. So, moving on to 2018, this is our final year. Obviously, remember, we're going to do 2019 next week. That's going to be our game
Thanks
of the
for
year
the
talk.
pressure. I have to beat
Yeah.
Resident Evil 2 in a week.
You don't have to beat it, just play it.
Well, at least I am still in my backlog because Guacamelee 2 I'm starting.
Yeah, you'll have impressions for it at least. 2018 had some very big games, including Monster Hunter World, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Oh, that's such a good game. Marvel.
I was really debating that too, even though I love my game.
Yeah.
I was like,
Very
Odyssey really.
18 was a good year. Marvel Spider-Man, another great game.
I know you didn't play Celeste, but Celeste does everything Super Meat Boy does with a great and impactful story.
Yeah. Forza Horizon 4. You have
Tetris Effect.
Yeah.
Such an amazing that. Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves.
Octopath
yes.
Traveler.
Fallout 76. I'm kidding.
Shit,
Definitely
you just gave
not.
mine away.
Yeah.
That's my game.
Definitely not. Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
The Messenger.
Yep. So tons of great games in 18. So my choice for 2018 is Red Dead Redemption 2. And obviously you talked about the original, which I absolutely loved as well. Red Dead Redemption 2 for me is a masterclass in storytelling, and like everything you do in that world, just you feel like every conversation you have, every thing you're doing in the world has an impact on the story. Based on how Rockstar frames the world, the way they have the AI companions talking to you, I absolutely love all of that. There's obviously problems with it. It has old gameplay mechanics. The movement is very slow, which, to its credit, the movement being slow does kind of make you take in the world more, so to speak. So you can't, I can't necessarily criticize them for that. And the other thing that I absolutely hated was the fast travel system, that they didn't have a real fast travel system. They just had basically you could return to camp from certain missions.
I didn't even unlock that part. That's how quickly I delve into it. But
Which
it's one of those, in my opinion, from hearing a lot of insiders, was a Death Stranding type game, though more loved than that, obviously, universally.
Right.
But it was a little bit of a divisive game, 2018.
It's very slow, and if
Yeah.
you don't like that kind of experience, then that you obviously will have a negative reaction to it.
So mine is a reinvention of a series that was not so beloved as far as the story or the character.
And it won Game of the Year.
And yeah, a lot of places gave it Game of the Year, but God of War. Not much has to be said about this that hasn't been. I mean, it's very fresh in everyone's mind still as far as this game goes. But I mean, it gave me the Kratos that I guess everybody wanted as far as somebody to care for. And I was already okay with it. I've actually liked all the God of Wars, but it never took away my love of the combat. It just reimagined it in today's world.
In a different way.
Yes, almost. It's a little obviously closer. You're not like as top-down isometric when you get into like a situation with characters.
Yep.
The best part of that game was honestly like traveling, going, and then just having Mimir by you. And you finding out lore about it without ever being prompted to, and then he'll stop and then he'll pick it up right again when you're out of combat and stuff like that. So it was a really kind of nice way to keep the pace going while you're like exploring Midgar and all this stuff.
And he kind of
not Midgar, Jesus, Final Fantasy VII. I can't remember the place. I'll think of it later. But Norse mythology.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, it's. I know you actually really liked it. That's actually the only statue him and I have in common is that collector's statue because of that game. But I mean, it's reimagined it. Cory Balrog became one of the hearts of the gaming industry with just, I remember his reaction video from watching all the people like praising it, all the critics, and him just crying to it. Like, you could tell it's people like that really make you appreciate these games that you do, because you can tell, even though this was a big AAA game, he's got that mentality of an indie developer. He just wants people to love what he creates. That's all.
I agree. Yeah.
So I mean, it's really cool to see that.
And Mimir was always had these weird like comments he would make that was kind of funny as well. So I thought that was a pretty cool part of his character as well. And speaking of reimaginings, I forgot that our episode that got lost, I ranted about this for a second, so I'm just going to rant for a second.
No, it's okay. I don't want to go to bed.
No, I know. But reimaginings, speaking of reimaginings, I hope to God that people give Halo Infinite the chance to be Game of the Year. People often segregate Halo to be like, oh, it's Halo, so it's just Halo. So like they don't give it a chance to be Game of the Year necessarily. There's very rare circumstances that Halo games get put into a Game of the Year category, which in my opinion is kind of BS, but I just hope Halo Infinite gets the chance to do that. If the game comes out and is an amazing game, like if it doesn't get some kind of Game of the Year nomination, I will be pissed off.
But what if it's not a good game?
Well, no. If it's not a good game, obviously, then no. But I've been saying for a very long time that Halo Infinite is 343's Halo 3. It's their third game that they've ever released as a studio. That's the only, like, Bungie's Halo 3 was such an amazing game. It was my best game of ever. It was my favorite game I've ever played. And if 343 does that for Halo Infinite, then they need to get the credit that they deserve, in my opinion. But that's just a mini rant because I hate how Halo doesn't get as much credit as it deserves. Like, Master Chief Collection doesn't get the credit that it deserves for what they did to it. Yes, it was a disaster at launch, and many years went by before they did anything about it. But now, it is such an amazing experience, and it's on PC. It's on Xbox. Like, there's so many places to play it. Nobody talks about it. No one talks about it. It's just frustrating sometimes, but as a Halo fan. But that's the end of my rant. Do you have any rants before the show closes here?
No.
Okay. All right. So, thank you guys for watching with us live. That has been episode 21. Remember, next week we will be doing Game of the Year for 2019. We will have a discussion about that and our own personal Game of the Years. Appreciate you guys coming out to watch us. Remember, you can always watch us live at 8 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday on youtube.com. Just search Podcast PXN. And you can follow us, Podcast PXN, on Twitter as well. So, much love and keep on gaming.
Deuces.
See ya.